Welcome everybody into the TACBox podcast. We are on episode 8, I believe. It's Tuesday, May 13th. My partner
Eight?
Dale over here. 8,
Is
something like
it
that.
eight? Wow.
Yeah. I know, we're climbing up there.
I guess. Wow, that's amazing.
So we got Dale over here. We got myself. We're both fresh off of the show in Marshall, Texas this last weekend. Dale had a fantastic weekend showing. How about that, Dale?
It was pretty awesome. I mean, when you take Brent green puppies to the show, you always kind of like it's like a lottery ticket, and you think, hey, this could go really good, or it could go really bad. I mean, so hey, when it goes good, that'll make you come like another 50 or 60 times because remember that one time you went and it was really good, and then the next 49 times, no, they're gonna get car sick and not feel well.
That's how the addiction starts. You do really good one weekend, and it's just like, it's in my blood and I'm hooked now. So there's that other 49 times I'm going to be coming all the time.
Exactly.
So you had a really good show yourself, and your dogs did really good. The chin entry was really strong, and there was a lot of good people there. I thought it was a really put on show. It wasn't 110 degrees in Texas, so that was nice.
It was. This is the time of year that you can lull people in to come here. This is wonderful. I mean, but we've got 2 more months to go, and then you'll get to experience what summer's all about. But
Yeah.
no, we had great exhibitors. We had beautiful dogs. We had fun people judging. It was a really fun event. I mean, and Nancy Malott, shout out. Nancy is like the little show that could. She makes everything happen for everybody, and everybody feels welcome at her events. So, shout out for Nancy.
Absolutely. That was one of the things that I took away from this weekend is just everybody was so nice and welcoming, and they did a really good job putting the show together. So huge congrats to the people down there. It was a big success.
Yeah, they
So
sure did.
today we're back in our offices back home. I got in last night late, so I'm running off a little sleep trying to catch up on life. And we wanted to talk about vaccines today. So
Let's talk about vaccines because, like yesterday, I had my shingle shot and the second one, and I thought my arm was going to fall off this morning. And this morning, I was like laying on my side, twitching. But you know, we're back in action. The magic of vaccines. So we can we can ward off things that can cause us severe problems later on.
yeah, and this episode might be sketchy. I don't know. It might be borderline because there's a lot of strong opinions on vaccines, whether it's in animals or it's in humans, and it seems like you have two camps. You have your anti-vaxxers and you have your pro-vaxxers, and that goes. I mean, do you remember? Just 2 years ago or 5 years ago, I guess, in the pandemic, there was a lot of people resistant to getting the COVID vaccine. So this could be one of those episodes where there's a lot of opinions
Oh man,
presented, but we want to try to stay with facts, right? And
we
what
could, we could get canceled. I mean, like that. But I will say that dog people and we have, I'm not saying on the human end, but for our pets, we have more sense for our pets than we do for ourselves. Um, we know the value of properly vaccinating your dogs. We know because I mean, at one point in time, with distemper, which I used to call hard pad, was there. People would like take their dogs to the show, and then they'd wait and see what's going to die. I mean, it was really that die is like we're going to go to the show, but they might all die. And then, like, I mean, that you have to admire the fortitude of those people. Because I think probably about the second time I went to the show and everything died, I'd probably go, "Oh, I don't want to do this anymore." Um,
Yeah.
a- and then, like in the '70s, they had where they really identified parvovirus, and that people were losing whole litters, whole kennels. I mean, and then all of this stuff that went through to get the first parvo vaccines out and stuff. I mean, and I mean, yes, parvo still rolls around through and stuff especially in the summertime and stuff, but it's not like it was. You don't have to lose your dogs if you do your vaccines right. You know, you. I think that I think that distemper is largely gone, except for some very, very, very weird, sketchy situations. But I mean, that's just pretty much gone. And parvo is definitely under control. So I mean, and that's through the magic of vaccines.
So let's talk high overview about vaccines, and we can give your opinions if you want. Just say this is my opinion if we're doing something, because I want to ask things along the lines of what should people. You have a fresh litter of puppies. What should our vaccinations look like when we have a fresh litter of puppies?
Okay, so let's start one step back on that.
Yes.
Breeds, all of the different breeds have different, can have a little bit different vaccination, needs and requirements. There's the blanket thing, the blanket protocol, which we're basically going to be talking about today. But you really should, talk to a long-term breeder and kind of see what they have done with that breed of dog that has been very effective. Because, like, say, Rottweilers highly susceptible to parvo. Some breeds have vaccination sensitivity, and so you won't be giving vaccines as early or as many. Some breeds you're going to do them younger, but so we're going to talk about general information. And the one thing I want to point out is all vaccines except for rabies can be given by the breeder. So, there is no excuse to be late or cut your vaccines or whatever. You can give all of your own vaccines except for rabies because that's human transferable. Although I haven't heard of a case of rabies that has, taken people out or dog, I mean, not since old Yeller got shot in the corn crib, and that was before you were born. Um, so that's I mean, you should like do. Yeah, we order a lot of our vaccines. Find from your breeder, what do they like, what do they use, what seems to have had a good effect for them. So I mean, if you're because giving a puppy a shot, not rocket science. Probably a YouTube video or two out there that's pretty easy to give.
Yeah, there's definitely YouTube videos out there for that type of stuff, and it's stuff that you can get at your local farm and ranch store, right? Like Fleet
Yeah.
Farm, Runnings, your local farm supply store generally has the shots that you could give for that, or like you said, you can order them online as well.
Sure. Like Lamberts, I mean, there's several of them that are real good. And like, so let's say you have a real breed of real dogs that you're going to have. Maybe they say we're going to do a litter of Great Pyrenees, and we had 8 to 10 puppies. Well, and we're going to vaccinate them. We're going to vaccinate them a couple of times before they go. Well, that's a bunch of shots, right? That could be 20 vaccines in the that we're giving these puppies. So that is you can make that very much more affordable. By giving your own vaccines. You want to be sure that your vaccines are, if they're shipped, you want to make sure that they're promptly put in the fridge. You want them stored properly. You want them mixed properly. You want to do it properly to get the optimum bang for the buck. But there's no, I mean, we love our vets. The vets are awesome. If you want to take them to the vet to get the shots, fine, but you got to do it. You can't put it off to next week when you have time to get your nails and hair done. You got to do them. I mean, it's not a matter of that. You have to be regimented on that because we're talking about these puppies' immunity titers after they're, because when they're nursing on the mom, that's the colostrum immunity, and that's from her vaccines. And to back that up one further, sometimes, especially if you feel that you have a need for more immunity, sometimes I'll go ahead and when my bitches are in heat and I'm going to breed them, I'll go ahead and give them a booster, right? Because those puppies will be be born with a higher titer if the mother has a if she's more current on her shots. You know, the so that go ahead and have that in kind of in the can. But you want to go ahead and like have that plan in place. Like they're born on this day. We're going to do this, and this is where some of the breed specific stuff comes in. Is how what dates you're going to do your shots and your wormings and all of that, and along with the time and place that you're going to send them out to their new homes.
So let's talk about what vaccines should be given, because there's 3-in-1s, there's 5-in-1s, there's 9-in-1s, there's whatever number in ones you want to come up with. So when we're talking generally specific, what are we really wanting to focus on?
Okay, good question. So say one of my breeds that I've had for a very very long time, Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. They are a very pure breed unto themselves. They have they have fewer blood platelets and they're larger. They can they sometimes can have shot sensitivity. So I will go ahead and I will just do just a parvo distemper with them. I don't use the 5-in-1s. In fact, there is a Cavalier King Charles protocol that was published by a Dr. Gene Dodd. I actually texted that to you, so you have that in your phone. You can read it. It's kind of fun. But that's one that we use for our Cavaliers. Super good. If we were going to breed, let's say one of our let's say we decided we were going to breed Pyrenees. We were going to Samson was going to be our super stud. Uh, I would probably use 5 ways on those puppies because they're going to be outside a lot more early on. They're going to be ready to leave for parts unknown at 8 weeks. Younger dogs, because they're not all the same. Your little tiny Chihuahua is not the same as your Labrador Retriever puppy. So where one of them can take a lot more bang for the buck as far as a shot, you might want to go ahead and dial that back a little bit on something that's smaller, more fragile. So that's part of the know your breed. Know what your breed needs. Know your breed's sensitivities and issues. I use the Novivac. Like it a lot. It is it's a good vaccine, and they have several different kinds. Their strain of parvo is like probably one of the most current ones. There's some old vaccines that have been around forever, like Neopar, Galaxy, Vanguard. Those are old. Yeah. I'm sure they're effective too, but like I said, we like the Novivac. It's worked out well for us. We'll go ahead and there was also a phenomena that kind of got caught on the internet that people started doing, kind of like twerking or something. Just like people thought, hey, this is a really great idea. I don't really think it's a great idea. They were saying, oh, well, my dog is small, or my puppies are small, so I'm going to just give them half of a shot because this puppy, the Great Dane puppy and the Japanese Chin puppy, can't possibly need the same vaccine. Well, don't do that. It's a terrible idea because you can't take that shot that's mixed together when you take the cereal diluent and put in with the cake of it and shake it. You can't divide that up and say, well, this part, you got half of the parvo and half of the distemper and half of the diluent. It doesn't work like that. So some puppies would get all of it and some puppies would get none. And so when you give a shot, give the whole shot. Just like the same shingle shot that I took yesterday, Jane got 2. They didn't go ahead and cut hers in half because she's half the size I am. It doesn't work like that, so don't do half shots. Bad idea. I know the internet, there's someone on there thinking that's, well, not good. The full vaccine. So you're going to have to decide at what age your puppies need their shots. Generally speaking, vaccines are done on 2 week intervals. So if you're raising a breed that can go at 8 weeks, you might say 6 and 8, and then they can go to their new homes. That's totally fine. Where maybe you have a breed that is smaller, slower to wean, slower to come off the moms. The shots might be 8 and 10. You know, so you can kind of knowing your breed, knowing what they need, and then kind of go on that. But once they have size to them, then they can take whatever shot you want to give them. The 12 way or whatever. They have everything in their everything with the kitchen sink. Fine, but when they're babies, sometimes you have to be a little bit more do a little bit more research as to what you're injecting your puppies with.
So there was a lot to dissect in there, and hopefully people. I mean, you can pause, rewind, go back and listen again because there was a lot in there. And one of the big questions that I had that I was going to ask was about a Great Dane puppy, and I was actually going to use the Great Dane example. So this is funny because we haven't talked about this prior to right now, and you brought it up as Great Dane versus something small, and that is something that's going around and something that like if you pause and you think about it, and it's like well, yeah. Why would I give my 1 pound Chihuahua the same amount of vaccine as I would my 6 pound Great Dane? And then you can also throw it back on the other side of well, a 250-pound human has the same vaccine as a 120-pound human. It's the same amount, same everything, and
You
and we're not
couldn't
having a
pour a
ruckus
mixed,
on that.
you couldn't pour a mixed drink. You couldn't do a rum and coke, and you couldn't pour half in one glass and half in the other, and possibly divide the half of each ingredient in each one. The shots are a complete unit. So you want to go ahead and you want to, the shot is going to be if your puppy is big enough for shots, if it's eating good, all of that, then yes, it needs the shots. And it's less of that shot is not going to be like easier on the puppy, and in fact, you might not be vaccinating it for part of the what you're giving the shots for because you don't know what half has what in it. And so, like I say, the half shot stuff because I mean we're known for toy dogs, and so toy dog people they love that concept, and I don't know if it's because they think it's cheaper to give 3 shots to 6 puppies. Yeah, no, 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 no. There are things to save money on. Some things you have to spend your money on. Good food, vaccines. Those are things that you need to spend your money on to have good puppies. And so, like one thing that is kind of good is and this is something we do is we do the intranasal kennel cough shot at 3 weeks, 21 days, and we just put a drop in each nose. Now each nostril, and we'll do the whole litter. You can do the whole litter with one shot, right? But just to give them a little bit of coverage as they're coming off the mother's immunity. It's kind of just a little something there that has worked really well with brachycephalic dogs. When a brachycephalic dog gets an upper respiratory, a kennel cough virus, they take it way harder. It's harder on them. Their eyes close up. They stop eating. It's a big hit. So that's just a little kind of a safety net we do with ours is we do a drop of the kennel cough shot into each nostril at 21 days. But and like I say, our first 2 shots are just parvo December. And if you have an outside breed that might be exposed to leptospirosis, because leptospirosis is largely rat urine in food, which, I mean, that sounds like, oh God, no one has that. But okay, your Labrador Retriever puppy might find something to eat outside in the grass, and it could be exposed to leptospirosis. So that kind of a shot, probably a good idea for that. We don't give lepto to juvenile toy dogs as a rule. It's kind of a hot shot, like the shingle shot. for people. So I kind of avoid lepto on young toy breed puppies. It's just like I say, it can knock them a bit. It's a hard shot for them. If you're going to give it to them, maybe knock it. 14 weeks, 16 weeks. Give them that leptospirosis shot then, because at that point, you're fine. They're bigger. They have more body weight, more bulk to them. One thing that is good, because we're so frugal and thrifty on in the TACBox. There are as far as like getting your rabies shots and all that. It's the same rabies shot if you go to a Tractor Supply or wherever your farm store out there, wherever you happen to be, and they do a rabies clinic and they're giving shots for $6-8 a piece. It's a rabies shot, but it's a rabies shot. Save they'll have vets out there that'll come and give the shots. Yeah, that's fine. No problems. Go ahead and get that shot, because that's something I say. It's human transferable. There's actual laws as to who can give it and how it's going to be, because a rabies shot that is not recognized unless it's given by a veterinarian. So that's kind of like, you have an obligation there to make sure a vet gives that shot. All the rest of them can be given by the breeder. And if a veterinarian, they're going to love this. If a veterinarian throws shade on the shots given by your breeder and says, "Oh, we have to revaccinate this whole thing. This is not good. We're not going to accept these shots," find a new vet. They're more concerned about billing you for giving another set of shots, because a good veterinarian would not say, "Oh, let's totally vaccinate this puppy," because these are breeder given. No, I hear that every now and again, and that's bull. When you give your shots, you'll have some people will take the stickers off of the vials, and you can put them on your shot record. Very nice. There's shot records that Revival and those companies give you. You can put it all together there. That looks very professional. Because I think that breeders, we don't want our puppies to get sick. We're going to give them the shots. I think the idea that somebody's selling dogs or breeding dogs that they're not giving vaccines is pretty unlikely. And if you're dealing with a person that's that sketchy, you've got bigger problems. But
So what about so you're saying puppies, you haven't directly said this, but this is what I'm getting out of it. Puppies need to have 2 shots before they can go home is
absolutely,
is what I'm
yeah,
hearing. So then we leave it to the the puppy buyer to administer or to get this puppy with the final 2 shots. Um,
correct.
is there any sort of study or anything out there that, if say you give a, parvo distemper shot, you give it twice, puppy goes home, and now they do a different shot. Does that matter at all? Is there any scientific studies out there of anything on that type of thing?
Okay, that's good question. Sometimes people, there's titer testing that you can do with your dog. So if you're like, "Oh, well, do I want to give my dog another shot? Does it have titers?" They can do the titer testing.
Is
One thing,
that vet only?
yeah, the titer testing, yeah. But one thing that you will sometimes have is like, if someone gets a new puppy and they've traveled that puppy, and that puppy comes, planes and trains and automobiles, changing food, stressed out, comes, you get your new puppy and it's got the poops. Maybe it's car sick. Well, they go ahead and go, "Oh, well, let's run a parvo test on that." If that puppy has had a shot within 2 weeks of that test, it's going to light up like Christmas. It's going to show that parvo, yes, because you injected it with it. And so it is going, does not mean that they have parvo, means it was vaccinated for parvo. And that, so, I hear that periodically, someone will get a puppy and it'll get car sick or whatever, and well, they ran a parvo test, and I'm like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's no, no. Your dog doesn't have parvo. You know, your dog is current on its vaccines and has high blood titers because it's had its shots, but it doesn't mean that it has that. That's kind of a thing right there, in itself. That's just it's stressed and it's got diarrhea, but it doesn't have parvo. Totally different thing.
So what about the phenomenon that uh, the mother's milk provides immunity for the puppy until they're 16 weeks old?
Well, okay. The magic of colostral milk, you know, Mother Nature's, ultimate thing. It's like how I mean, you don't know. You don't know how good the mother's titers are. That's why I said when the bitch comes to eat and you're about to breed it, what does it hurt to give it a shot? Have her titers be higher when she's, I mean, I've not done any studies on this. I just common sense tells you it's true. But how long the colostral immunity, uh, it withholds in the puppies, that's a matter of debate. A lot of people will say once they're really not nursing, the colostral milk actually is usually like the first 48 hours of their nursing. But lots of puppies are raised without colostrum, and are fine. Just vaccinate them at the regular time. Sometimes you can get, I mean, colostrum milk. Clearly, it's an advantage. When those titers begin to fall, we don't know. That's why you're giving multiple shots. Otherwise, you could just give one shot and say, "Oh, you're good." No, you're having to give multiple shots because they're pinging off as long as the colostral immunity is there. But you don't know when it falls, and that they can take that shot and then build their own immunity from that. So that's where part of the phenomena of multiple shots go into to building on the immunity. But you know, 16 weeks, I'd say that would be some pretty damn good colostrum, that would see you through 4 months. I would tend to not perhaps buy that, um, but I surely wouldn't count on it. Wouldn't turn it down, but I wouldn't count on it either. And it also depends as to the amount of exposure. But everybody is more exposure than they think. They're like, oh, well, oh no, I'm, no exposure. Yeah. Okay, but so when you have like everyone that comes in your house, where have they been? You know, did they wear their same shoes that they went to the vet clinic or went to the groomers or went to the dog show? I mean, all of that is exposure, 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 exposure. You want to know probably the best place to expose your puppy to something? The grass outside of a vet clinic would be quite lovely. I mean, I'm sure that's a petri dish. It looks pretty. It's all mowed, but people have been there with sick animals. You know, probably within the last 48 hours. So your exposure is directly related to your puppy's vaccine needs. So I mean, if you live in a bubble, good for you, and your puppies are never exposed to anything, lovely, and your kennel and everything is closed, and you don't go to training class, you don't go out there. I mean, none of these things. You're not being exposed to other things. But should you come out of the bubble, you would definitely need to have current vaccines. And the more you're exposed, the more diligent you need to be on that.
How easily can something like that be transferred? So like I'm just thinking out loud, like if somebody goes to a dog park for argument's sake and then goes to the grocery store and wipes their feet on the welcome mat, and then I go to the grocery store and walk on that welcome mat and wipe my feet, and then I go home. I mean, what are the chances that that could be transferred from that person that went to the dog park to the grocery store to now I go to the grocery store, bring groceries home, and just brought it into my house?
That's how it works. That's exactly how it works. It's why everybody who goes on a cruise ship ends up with the shits
Yeah.
because they're all walking through the same hall, all hit the same buttons in the elevator, had their hands on the rails. Like 1 person. And next thing everybody has it. I mean, and so that's where I mean they're not that frail, really. I mean, so it's kind of like the vaccines, and people shouldn't be weird about them. I don't, on their dogs as far. I mean, be weird on your own vaccines. That's a you problem. But but your dogs. Gosh, if you follow those protocols, you don't have to be in a bubble. You can they can they're pretty healthy and they're pretty they'll be strong and they can be exposed to stuff. Because really and truly, I mean, when you think about it, you got a dog. We were at a dog show with over 1,000 dogs in one arena, and no, I mean, that's a lot of exposure. You know, but those dogs vaccinated, you know, and of course, your kennel hygiene and cleanliness and your biosecurity and all that stuff, that definitely, with your younger animals, yeah, you definitely need to like keep that cleaner, you know, and just like with people, dogs have times of their life that they're more susceptible than others. Older dogs, they're more apt to, or a dog that's having a health issue, higher susceptibility. Puppies just weaning off that are you're juggling their vaccines and their fall of their colostral immunity, more susceptible. So you just kind of have to be aware of that.
So what is kind of, say we follow protocol, we do 4 shots, we give it the last shot 16 weeks old. What are we doing after that? Once a year, we're not titer testing. We're just an
Oh,
average person that bought a dog. So how often do we need boosters?
all right. So that's a good question. So for like you and I, we're wanting to take these dogs out to coliseums and events and 1,000 dogs, and we're going to breed them. We're doing all this stuff. Yeah, probably your animals that are going out and being exposed and that you're using for breeding, it probably wouldn't hurt to booster them once a year during that period of their life. From that time they're a yearling to 5 when you're taking them to shows and using them to have puppies. Okay, that's fine. Then after that, you can kind of like uh, base it out on. But if you're not that person and your dog is your dog's this is a dog that's staying home, like the rabies shot is a 3-year shot. So I mean, you can do a three. So I mean, that's telling you right there. Maybe every 3 years. You can do blood titers on that. I myself, for dogs that aren't being shown or bred, I do it with their rabies. I do it every 3 years. That's me. You can do a little breed research. You can, but those are dogs that are not leaving, not being bred, not having high exposure. You know, they're not going to events and all that. Yeah, that you can push that off, and you can. And a lot of really good clinics offer titer testing, and you can see like, my 10, 11-year-old dog doesn't need it. So you can kind of base that on a need basis. What you're doing with that dog, what the situation is, how you want to go about it.
Okay, that makes sense. And so, which then leads me, I guess it's a two-part question. So, say you get a dog and you don't know the history on this dog. You don't know what shot it's had, when it's had them. So, is that a scenario where it's like, probably should give this dog a booster because I don't know where it's been. I'm not going to get it titer tested. Just, is there anything wrong with that? Can there be too
100,
much? How does that?
100% vaccinated. 100% worm it, vaccinate it, flea treat it, started on your protocol. whenever I get a dog in, I don't care who it's from. My best friends that I love them, that do a fabulous job, I do it anyway. It's going to be my shot. I'm going to give it the shot. I'm going to worm it. I'm going to do it just because I have it in my. It's like, gosh, I think the trays of shots are down to like, they're like less than $5 a piece type thing. It's like, seriously, I want to have the record. I want to do it. I want to know. And like whenever I import a dog, I always revaccinate it. I want to, whenever I get a dog from someone else, I vaccinate it. If I have if I take your dog home and I'm going to keep it in my house in my dog room, and it's going to be there, for more than overnight, I'm going to vaccinate it. It's kind of like, that's just I do it because I want to know, and I just that's me. That's my own neurosis. I want to know. It's like having control of my situation, and I know that every dog in there vaccinated. Because
So
oftentimes,
is there anything with that I mean, is over vaccination a thing, or is it just they're gonna dispose kind of like if you take two multivitamins, you're just gonna urinate out what your body doesn't absorb? Is that the same type of scenario with vaccinations, or is there, if you get a dog and you vaccinate and it had just been vaccinated, is there any side effects other than maybe the shits?
um, yeah, I got a great story about my little brother who ate an entire bottle of vitamin C, and the orange ring it left around the toilet.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, I bet.
yeah, it's awesome. So in all reality, uh, in 41 years, I've never had a reactionary value to giving in my some of my breeds are pretty fragile, and I've never had a dog have of thousands of shots I've given. I've never had a dog have an issue from that. Never even had a dog have a loose stool from it. So I mean, I'm going to say statistically, you have a better chance of them drowning in the hot tub than having a volatile shot reaction. Um, so yeah, you have a bigger shot. You have a bigger reality of a viral exposure from an animal you don't know where it was from. You don't know the shots that were given, because I can't tell you how many times people will go ahead and go, "Oh no, it's current on all the shots," or was that the other one? Or oh, that was I just did that last November, or was it the November before? I mean, people forget, and
Yeah.
so I mean, and I like everything to be vaccinated with the same vaccine, and the same everything that I know my vaccine out of my refrigerator, given by Jane or I just take a lot of comfort in that. I like knowing that, and that's just a little $5 insurance policy that has worked well for me.
And unless you're buying a puppy from a breeder, a young puppy, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is,
Oh,
they probably
absolutely.
haven't had a recent vaccine because they're probably not getting rid of the dog that they just vaccinated. Like if you're taking on a year-old dog for whatever reason, it probably hasn't just been vaccinated. I mean, it's pretty safe to say.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
S-
I mean, when you're getting them in that, and when you're getting them in that 8 to 14 weeks window, then kind of look at the vaccines, that the shot record and all that, and make sure. But when you're getting a dog that's outside of the puppy vaccines, they're then go ahead, and even like when I get a puppy, I'll wait a couple of weeks beyond their last shot they gave, and I'll give it my shot. It just it's just a safety net. It's something that that I feel better about. Because I know.
So what about kennel cough and the nasal? The nasal, you said you might give them a drop at 21 days, but what about an actual
So
vaccination and how often?
so the kennel cough vaccine. There's a couple of different ones. They're all have value of some sort. They have the intranasal. They have the oral. All of that. I mean, you can, if you're going to go ahead and like if you're going to take your dog to be boarded, they're going to ask you to have a current because these are all dogs coming in, much the same as a dog show. So, it probably doesn't hurt on your dogs that you're going to be competing with and taking to events and all that. It wouldn't hurt to, give them, I mean, some, in certain times a year, because like down here in the South, we have higher temperatures, all going outside and hot and in the cold, and then massively exposed to all these other dogs. That's an upper respiratory looking for a place to happen. It's probably, like you say, an insurance policy. You can go ahead and say, well, I'm taking these 3 dogs to show. I'm going to booster them for a kennel cough. That doesn't hurt. It's just not going to hurt. That doesn't have as long of shelf life of immunity, depending as to stuff you have to read up on stuff. I would kind of say, in all reality, somewhere between 6 months and a year is probably when we had the boarding kennel. We really wanted them closer to 6 months, like to have them have a current vaccine for that before we brought them in and exposed them to everybody else's dog, because you get that going through and then everybody's got a cough, and it goes through kind of quick.
Yeah, that stuff can spread very fast. Now, can rabies be the same way? So what if, again, you come across a year-old dog that you bring in, you have zero idea on the rabies record? Do you just go ahead and do it, or is it?
Immediately take it and have a rabies shot done. Immediately. It's just like, because especially dogs that, especially when you're doing like rescue dogs or dogs that are not from, because we like, well, I mean, you saw the other day on Facebook, we'd pick those puppies up offside the road. You know,
Yep.
okay, they, vaccinate them, worm them, treat them for everything, isolate them, all of that. But I mean, could those dogs have been exposed to, I mean, what weren't they exposed to? And states like Texas, we have been under a rabies quarantine since the inception of the state. So I mean, I haven't heard of a lot of rabies with into canines, but we have coyotes, we have skunks, we have all of that stuff. Those dogs that, like Samson, he gets a rabies shot because he's out there patrolling the property. And so I mean, he could be exposed to something like that. It's possible.
And then you talked about worming. Talk about worming just a little bit more. How often,
Okay, so
ages,
there's a couple of
what you
different
like to
kinds,
use.
of intestinal worms. And so when you're breeding your female, right after you give her that shot, worm her. Worm her before you breed her. They really said, I mean, I don't know, this might be old information, but they used to say that 80% of puppies are born with some degree of intestinal worms. Hookworms and roundworms are your most common. I mean, easily treated. We automatically worm every puppy. We do a worming at 6 weeks. We usually do like 3 wormings, like 6, 8, 10. With the pyrantel or something like that. It's good. Hooks and rounds. That's your puppy killers. When you see like those puppies that I picked up the other day on Facebook, you go on my page, you see them, their bellies like this big. When after we hit them with their worming, it looked like moss hanging from the trees. They're just filled with roundworms. You know, and because obviously they had not been wormed, and their mother certainly wasn't wormed. Those things, that's really important. If you have a litter of puppies, it doesn't hurt, like a litter in there. Take a sandwich bag, pick up a turd, drop it off at the vet, and have them run a fecal on it. You don't need to do each puppy, because if they're all nursing on the same bitch in the same area, one fecal will tell you, because whatever one has, the other ones will have, you know, and so that's kind of a little a bargain way to check, make sure that your litter is clean. But I like to worm them about every year. I mean, that you have got your heartworm that you should do monthly. However you want to do that. Like where we live, we don't do heartworm over the winter months because it's not a mosquito problem. We do it through the summer months. We use ivermectin. But there's lots of good heartworm preventative and stuff. But you should worm your puppies with your shots. Get them off to a good start with that. You should worm your bitches when you breed them. It's just a good thing to have that. There's back in the olden days when we had a lot of gravel runs and stuff. People would use water softener salt to salt their runs to kill the worms and stuff. But those worms, you get them, intestinal worms. That's like the dog park phenomena. That's a great way to get intestinal worms. That's lovely. And one time I took somebody's orphaned puppies, put them on one of my bitches that had babies. Like they plugged those two puppies in. Those puppies had worms, had roundworms. The rest of my litter ended up with roundworms. My bitch cleaning those puppies, she had roundworms. We all had. It was like roundworm palooza. That's how that kind of thing goes. You have to gotta start with mom, then do the babies, and if you have kind of a somewhat of a closed colony, you can kind of keep it under control. I mean, I don't think we hardly ever, if ever, have a puppy with worms, but we worm them anyway because it doesn't hurt. You know.
Is that something again you could pick up at a Tractor Supply store online, or what do you recommend for that?
Absolutely, because your wormer has a long shelf life, you know, and when in doubt, worm them. It's just a good. It doesn't hurt to do it. It's kind of a good for what ails you type of thing. But Strongyl, Pyrantel, all of those. Panicure, great old wormer. 3 days of panicure. I mean, that'll clean them out. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to have on hand. Your vaccines and your worming. Your worming is just more of a matter of giving your puppies a good start. And I mean, I think that it's kind of like having your kids go to school and have them call you and say they got head lice. When the vet calls and says your puppies have worms, it's not a good look. It's kind of like you drop the ball.
Well, and at the end of the day, all of us breeders want to have strong, healthy puppies.
For sure.
I mean that's the point of the breeding, is we want strong, healthy puppies that we can either have a show dog or place into somebody's home, that they're gonna love this strong, healthy puppy. I mean, we don't want to put out bad puppies. So anything we can do as breeders to help our puppies grow big and strong, we're obviously all for.
And you can do it yourself. I mean, if you have lots of money and lots of time and you want to have your vet do it all, swell. That's great. Just do it. And make sure you do it. Don't. But if you're not, if you are more can do and you can, do your own shots and do your own worming, great. That's a good thing too. It depends how active you are, how much exposure you are. But you should, that's where you keep your litter. Like I have a clipboard with my puppies. I have their dates of birth, and right when my litter's born, I figure out all the vaccine dates and everything. Like this. I have all the pertinent things I'm going to do. I'm going to do intranasal on this time. I'm going to do their first worming on this time. I'm going to do their first shot this day. What day do I start taking mom away for during the day? All of that. I have it all written out. So it's kind of like there, right in front of you. And I do it right when they're born. Father, mother, colors, sexes, everything. It's good information. And then on my bitches folders, I keep track of that kind of stuff there. Like, when did she come in? When did she get her last worming and vaccine? Just kind of keep track of that. It's good
It's good
info.
information to have, and it goes back to the episode on record keeping. So if you guys
Right.
haven't listened to that episode, there is a episode on record keeping and some of the ways to do it with pen and paper, spreadsheets, or jump into 2025 and have an online program that is digital. You got AKC Breeder Toolkit, and there's a couple other ones out there as well that you can
Our shot
utilize too.
records are online. All of our shot records. So we have it with with our Kennel Books program. It prints off a nice, very professional, but anything is good. You can when you order your shots from Revival or whatever, they'll put shot cards in, and you can fill all those out, and you can put the chip numbers and everything on there. I mean, you can. It's a nice professional presentation, and they should be able to take that to the vet and show what they've got and what they're going to continue to need beyond that point.
I'm still trying to find a good kennel book program, but that's a topic for another day, I suppose.
Yeah, 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 yeah. There's a few of them. You gotta find. Kind of depends whether I guess if you're doing Windows or Mac or whatever your skill set is on that.
Yeah, exactly. So, how do you feel? Is there anything more to add to vaccines? Did we hit on most of what we need to be doing for our puppies?
I think we did. I think we really, like I say, diligence. Good protocol starts with when you're doing the breeding. Knowing what you need when you need it, deciding how you're going to do it, whether it's through the vet or through yourself, knowing what the protocol that is best suited for your breed. That's good for good for that. Like Cavalier people, check out the Gene Dodd protocol. It's what we've used now for 8 years and had tremendous success with. Very good. Few less shots than you would normally give, but it seems to work, but know what you need, and then go ahead and get it. Have that in hand and have that
And
resource person.
yeah, and even ask breeders of your breed what they do. You're probably going to hear five different things, or you might hear a million different things. Yeah, every breeder might tell you something different, but you can kind of start seeing a pattern, get a general idea, and come up with what you want to do and what's going to work for you, and just ask around and find out what others are doing. That's a lot of times the best way to learn is ask questions and do your own research, or on the other hand, just listen to the TACBox podcast and we'll give you
There
the
you go.
answers.
All your questions are answered. I mean, we have it right here from the
It's all in one place, so it's very
one.
nice.
Yeah, just unpack it. Yeah, it's right there.
All right, that'll wrap us up for today's episode on vaccinations. I think it was a super fun episode, so thanks for joining me and doing this with me, Dale. Everybody else, please don't forget to subscribe to our channels, Facebook group. We do have a group where you can chit chat, ask each other questions, ask us questions, and we'll reply. Just a good little community place where we can all uh, share the love for dogs and dog breeding. So follow us on there, and um, that will do it for this episode. Any final comments, Dale?
Hey, summertime. Stay on top of your stuff with your pets. Be sure to make sure your shots are current. Be mindful because now it's starting to get warm out. Watch those temperatures for everybody. Make sure that you keep it in mind because we're coming off the winter. We've maybe been taking them with us and stuff, and it's going to start getting hot. So be mindful of that.
Absolutely. Thanks for that final comment here. And for Dale, I am Tyson. You guys all have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.